Welcome into another post-game edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast. We're brought to you, as always, by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, your premier dental implant destination. Nick Farrell here with you following West Virginia's Big 12 opener, and the feel of this podcast is going to be a lot different than last week's, folks. There was jubilation, excitement, maybe even a little bit of awe after West Virginia's come-from-behind victory in the Backyard Brawl. There was a deficit in the game against Kansas, but there certainly was no comeback as the Mountaineers were beaten soundly on the road in their Big 12 opener 41-10 by Lance Leipold and the Kansas Jayhawks. So to dissect this matchup, we bring in our beat reporter, Cody Nespor. He's one of the best on the beat, and we're happy he's on our team. Cody, West Virginia tonight soundly beaten by a Kansas team that could end up being quite good in the conference this year.
Right, yeah, and it was, I don't know, after the first quarter and a half, it was close. It looked like it could be a game, and then the third quarter just got totally away from the Mountaineers, and it became kind of a non-competitive contest after that.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case, Cody. Let's start with our turning point here, brought to you as always by our friends at First Green Mortgage. Your home is the heart of what we do. Visit them online at fgm.bank, equal housing lender. There were a couple of moments in this game where things just started to get away from West Virginia. I'd say one of them, Cody, and I wonder if you agree with me, is that really crafty play that Kansas drew up late in the second quarter. It's a Jalen Daniels 39-yard touchdown pass to LaShawn Williams. At that point, it turned a one-score game into a two-score game. Kansas goes up 17-3 just before halftime. The Jayhawks were able to score again, and then things really started to spiral after that. But it was a really pretty play. West Virginia's defense got beat on it, and then from there, it just started to really, the bottom kind of fell out.
You're right. That was kind of the beginning of the end, and especially for them to be able to kick a field goal at half two, go up by 17. That just feels really bad. And then, of course, the way the third quarter started with the kick return, and Rich kind of talked about it post game. Like that's just kind of where it ended, right? And like you said, the bottom just kind of falls out. All of a sudden it's a 3-touchdown game. Really, since the last time. They had a decent drive into Kansas territory, turn it over on downs. You have a drive at the end of the half, doesn't go anywhere, and then all of a sudden you're way behind and out of it. Yeah,
that's right, Cody. You have maybe some optimism going into the locker room. I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, but it is. It's a 17-point game at halftime. You came back from down 10 in about 10 minutes or less, really, against Pitt. So hey, what can't this team do, right? But then you come out and you allowed them to take the opening kick 94 yards to the crib. Emmanuel Henderson did that for Kansas to set the tone in the second half. If the turning point was the Jalen Daniels touchdown pass to LaShawn Williams, the kiss of death, so to speak, was that kickoff return. And of course, Coach Rodriguez really lamented that after a first half that was okay from the defense. He certainly agrees with us that was a play that really was unacceptable from West Virginia on special teams, and we'll let you hear more from Coach Rodriguez here in a little bit. We're recording this. He has just left the podium in Lawrence, Kansas, as the team gets ready to return home and gets ready to try to put this one behind it with film study and practice coming up tomorrow afternoon and evening. So Cody, let's go into that point a little bit more, though. It seemed like West Virginia played okay defensively in the first half. That kick return in the second half, though, it really, again, started to snowball after that, and it really leaked into every phase of the game, right? The defense just did have some trouble executing after that point. There are a few things to mention here about the defense in this game. One of them is that Fred Perry was the team's leading tackler with 5, even though he basically was disqualified from play for the majority of the game. Perry was ejected for a targeting foul in the first half. So, yes, he is arguably their best defensive player. He's a ball hawk in that nickel position. He does a little bit of everything. But for him to end the game with 5 tackles and be the team leader, that also kind of sums up West Virginia's inability to stop Jalen Daniels and the weapons on the Kansas offense.
Yeah, and that's you mentioned it kind of started to leak into all phases. That's coaches talk all the time about complementary football, and that was sorely missing tonight. Where early on the defense did really well, right? The Kansas offense wasn't great. Jalen Daniels missed a couple of throws early, but West Virginia's offense, it's 4 of their first 5 drives were 3 and outs, so the defense is just out there constantly. Kansas offense just keeps getting opportunities. And then when the special teams gives up the touchdown, that's the ultimate, kind of dagger where now no phase is holding up its end, and the defense misses, 4 or 5 tackles on the long touchdown run later in that quarter. And it's just, there was no, it's kind of the same thing that happened when they lost at Ohio a few weeks ago. There was no complimentary football. The defense played well that game. They didn't get any help from the offense. They didn't get any help from the special teams. And it's, it's a cliche, but coaches bring it up for a reason. It's important. If the offense can even just pick up a couple first downs early on, and Kansas doesn't have short fields, and make them drive 80 yards, 70 yards instead of going 40 and 50 to the end zone. But that didn't happen, and it's really, that's really what kind of it was just like a sinking ship, and it eventually just took on too much water.
Cody, I want to get into some of the offensive shortcomings for West Virginia in a sec, but let's just cap this with one last note on the defense. One of the stories coming into the game was that Jamori Robinson was going to suit up for West Virginia for the first time. Remember, he was one of those 4 players involved in the eligibility lawsuit against the NCAA. Robinson did play, but any observations from you, Cody, on his potential impact for the defense?
No, I in his pregame on the radio, Coach Rodriguez said he imagined he'd play about 20, 25 snaps. That's probably what he was out there. Didn't really notice him. I don't think he logged a tackle, which, this guy hasn't not just not played a game of football, he hasn't practiced, right? Last week was his first week of practice. He practiced, he didn't play in the brawl, obviously. He practiced again this week, so not super surprising. Obviously, the talent is there. He's shown that. The coaches speak glowingly of him. But just nothing tonight, and not really surprising. Just, no training camp, no practice the first 2 weeks of the season. He's just going to have to work back into form.
So let's go over to the offense. West Virginia, while it may have played solid defense in the first half, that was not the case on the other side of the ball. I think you can look at this from a number of angles and find some flaws in West Virginia's game. For me, Cody, and I think you'll agree, the most glaring weakness from WVU in this performance was its inability to run the football. If you look at the box score, you'll see that as a team, West Virginia rushed for over 180 yards, and so you may think, what the heck is this guy talking about? But when you take away fourth quarter rushing contributions from backup quarterbacks, Jalen Henderson and Khalil Wilkins led the offense in the fourth quarter. If you take their contributions away, the 20 carries split among the running backs and one wide receiver in Man Singleton, who had 2 carries, they combined for just 55 yards, and that's not going to cut it. No matter if it's Big 12 play, non-conference play, anywhere in the country, that's not going to be good enough for West Virginia. I think a team that wants to run the football, it needs to be better. And, there are a couple of reasons that you can point to about why. One of the things that we will discuss and need to discuss on this episode, Cody, is the injuries for West Virginia, because they do continue to pile up. And at running back, with Jaheim White sustaining a season-ending injury in the Ohio game, you had the answer to the question, who's it going to be, last week in Ty Edwards, who goes for 3 scores and has one of the best rushing performances by a Mountaineer in the Backyard Brawl in 2 decades. Well, guess who doesn't play in this game? It's not just number 1, White, it's number 2, Edwards, the guy who was the answer, and then West Virginia had none with Ty Edwards unavailable for this game.
Yeah, and that's the thing that sticks about the brawl performance by Ty was how many tackles he broke, right? And him himself being able to rip off chunk plays because he broke tackles, because it took 2, 3, 4 defenders to bring him down. And when you look at the way they ran the ball on this one, very few broken tackles, if any, from the running backs early on. And, when they're not getting those running plays, then it's suddenly, okay, 3rd and 8, you have to throw the ball. And they just weren't in a position to do that early on. And so Edwards, he just kind of Coach didn't talk about him on Tuesday. He just kind of cropped up on the new Big 12 player availability reports, which this is the first week we got those as a conference game. He just kind of cropped up. He was probable all week. Earlier today, he was listed as a game time decision, and you heard Coach talk about it in the post game. He said, he made the trip here. I expected him to play, but at kickoff, he just couldn't go. And I think that's a huge loss because he really broke out last week, and he really showcased, it's going to be okay without Jaheim. Well, him missing, it wasn't okay tonight.
Certainly so, Cody. Nico Markiel was the starting quarterback for West Virginia. Again, he didn't finish the game. Markiel, 15 for 27, 126 passing yards. He did not contribute a touchdown. He did lead one scoring drive that ended in a field goal. The only touchdown for West Virginia on the day came from Jalen Henderson early in the fourth quarter, a 13-yard rush that capped an 11-play, 95-yard scoring drive across 4 minutes, made the score 34-10 at that point. Henderson really racked up the rushing yards when he was in there. 2 for 4 passing. He goes 7 for 79 on carries with a long run of 32 yards. A bit of a spark, but it's also maybe a little bit difficult to glean anything from that as it was so late in a game that was had already been decided at that point. West Virginia was down by 31 points when Henderson entered the game. Quick note, too, on Khalil Wilkins. He didn't throw a pass. He rushed it 5 times for 36 yards with a long run of 20. So similar deal there. Coach Rodriguez, you'll hear his comments in a little bit when we go and listen into his post-game press conference, his evaluation of the 3 quarterbacks who played tonight. Maybe a little bit of something interesting in there for those of you who like to discuss the signal caller, because as we know, that is going to continue to be a topic for discussion at the Pushkar Complex and among some of our competitors in the biz, right, Cody? So we talked about injuries. So no Ty Edwards, he doesn't play. And then in the game, Landon Livingston, West Virginia's starting center, goes down with an injury, did not return to the game. That happened just before halftime. Seemed like it could be a potentially bad situation for Livingston, although we don't have an update on him quite yet. Hoping to have one Tuesday when Coach Rodriguez and the team holds its weekly media session ahead of the game against Utah. So no Ty Edwards, Landon Livingston a casualty in this game. Am I missing anything else, Cody? Any other injuries that come to mind?
No, Preston Fox was out this game. Marshawn Oxley, he was on the report. He ended up playing. Chase Wilson came back. He missed the brawl. I think that was the notable ones.
Okay, got it. So yeah, I mean, I would say that Cody Nespor, folks, is a big fan of the injury report. If there's any positive to take away from this week and a difficult loss to Kansas, it would be that there's a little bit of transparency when it comes to injuries. And it's not like what you might expect that all 16 coaches in the league are just saying, hey, I have 105 guys on my roster and they're all questionable. No, there is some legitimate information that's being distributed there.
Yes, it's and even this morning, or not this morning, this afternoon, I remarked, it's impressive. That's when we got Ty Edwards as a game time decision. It is, you always suspect coaches to play their cards close to the vest and find any little tactical advantage. It is impressive to see all the Big 12 coaches seemingly take this very seriously and provide real updates, as they're supposed to, really. But it is, and it gives us great insight. Without it, we would have just been left today to say, hey, where was Ty Edwards? We didn't hear about him Tuesday. What happened? Now, we saw all week that it wasn't 100%, and it kind of pays off today. So yes, Nick, a huge fan of that.
Just to really quickly backtrack for anyone who maybe wasn't aware of the injury reports, new initiative in the Big 12. Every team is required to publish injury reports within 3 days of kick, and then a final report 90 minutes before kickoff. One thing you may have said, okay, well, where were those? Well, the first one of the year for West Virginia came in the first Big 12 game. Non-conference games, they aren't mandated. They will be mandated for all of West Virginia's remaining games. So if you're interested in keeping an eye on West Virginia's injury report, we'll keep you covered at goldenbluenation.com and on the free Golden Blue Nation app as injury reports are published during game weeks and leading right up to that report 90 minutes before kickoff. So, all right, we're going to take a quick quick break here, and then we'll head to the podium to hear post-game thoughts from head coach Rich Rodriguez. A quick note, though, before we do that, if you're listening to this episode of the Golden Blue Nation podcast wherever you get your shows, keep in mind that we are now available as a video podcast, and you can watch it at goldenbluenation.com, on the free Golden Blue Nation app, on the Golden Blue Nation YouTube channel, and if you have one of those wonderful new smart TV apps from one of our partnered stations, that's another great way that you can get post-game reaction following every West Virginia football game this season right here on the Golden Blue Nation podcast presented by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, home of the same-day smile. So now you've got the Rich Rodriguez Show Saturdays at 9 a.m., 2 hours of Mountaineer game day from 10 to noon, and then we're back on your screens after every West Virginia football game this year. There's no better group to get you ready for game day and take you all the way through the final whistle and beyond than us right here at Golden Blue Nation. Okay, that's it for a shameless plug. We'll be right back and go right to the podium with head coach Rich Rodriguez after this on the GBN pod.
The reason I came to the practice was because I had had some teeth extracted and I wanted to get some replacements for it. We did a treatment plan to see how many implants they were going to place, and now I'm actually just waiting to get the crowns. The thing I liked the most about coming here, I was greeted with a smile, everything ran smooth, and that they were really going to do what I wanted them to do to make my smile a little better. They're some of the best doctors, and you will get good quality care.
Searching for a mortgage lender that's 100% local, personal, and focused on home loans? First Green Mortgage has been serving West Virginia for more than 35 years, and they can assist you with every step of your home ownership journey. Visit them in Bridgeport or Morgantown or at fgm.bank.
Thought it was okay, we can practice, but evidently not good enough. A lot to work on. I mean, injuries are unfortunate. They're going to happen. Seems to be hitting in bunches, but that ain't the reason you lost. You lost because we poorly coached, poorly played.
So Rich, I know you don't want to use injuries as an excuse, but it was a factor. When did you know Ty just couldn't go? Is that just beat up?
Game time. I thought he got on a trip. I thought he was going to go if he went on the trip, but couldn't go, and so that's unfortunate.
When your offense doesn't have a run game, at least until late when the game is over, how detrimental is that?
Yeah, we got to try to manufacture some run stuff, and if you're going to have to throw it, you got to be really on the mark throwing. You know, precise with your passing game, your protection, your routes, and your decisions. And you know, we weren't precise in any of the categories there.
Difficulty in adjusting. Probably obviously I thought you found something, with that, which are running back, different style of runner, and then you've got to change a little bit after I'm sure you worked on that this week.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, when we're able to run the ball, everything's a lot easier. But it is what it is. We've got to manufacture it some way, and did a little bit at the end of the game with the quarterback run stuff. But listen, I got to see who's healthy. He is. I mean, it's just crazy. One of those years.
I'm sorry. Defense held up.
I thought defense played really hard the first half. Gave up one or two big plays. Most disappointing in the whole thing is the kickoff return. I don't know if I've had two in my whole career. And here we go, open up the second half when you got to try to get some momentum and give up a kick return. I mean, that's no excuse for that. So special teams should have blocked a punt or two, should have, could have, would have, done a lot of stuff. We got to coach them better and try to find out what we can do to be better on special teams because it wasn't good today.
See what it was on special teams, people getting out of alleys. Could you tell? I mean, from the side of
I couldn't tell from my vantage point. I'll watch the film tonight and see if we're jumping around blocks or whatever the case may be.
This is more of a field question. Do you feel like your team continued to compete hard, though, even when things were going well? Or?
I don't know. I mean, I think to some degree, maybe. I don't know if I'll watch the film. I would be really disappointed if anybody was loafing, but we weren't overly physical at times. We missed more tackles, I think, than we had in any of the other games, especially in the second half. So that was disappointing.
Positive, your backup quarterbacks gave you a little bit of spark. You see something?
Yeah, we was doing a little bit of quarterback run stuff. gives you a little different dimension, I guess. And so I thought Jalen ran hard, and Khalil's fast guy, so we wanted to get him some reps as well. So we'll figure out what we're going to do going forward.
Jalen Daniels do anything you didn't expect, or was he just as dynamic?
Yeah, he was. He's a really good player, strong, and made some big runs for him, some big scrambles. We had a couple busted. They were just hanging on. Defense was playing well and hanging on a little bit. And then at the end there, I didn't think we were as strong as we need to be. But again, our offense wasn't doing anything to help us, particularly in the first half.
I know you probably can't tell what you know, but you finally got Jamori Robinson back in. You see anything from him and a couple of glimpses?
No, he's pretty active, I think, what I could see. But again, we'll see how our coaches are graded to film on the way back, and we'll discuss it tomorrow.
The game was out of hand late in the third quarter. Defense swells up, a goal line gets a big stop. The offense then drives 95 yards. There's still some fight there. You always talk about PAT block. When games are out of control, watch the PAT block. You almost blocked that last PAT after their last touchdown. Do you think the effort was there? Well,
there was a PAT earlier than that we didn't give great effort. What I saw, but again, I don't think there's anybody that's happy in that locker room. We got, I know this is a process, and we got a lot. We're going to be, get better and better as we go along. If we can stay healthy, that's going to be a big part of it. But I got the whole team. I don't know if we gave as much effort during the week as we did the week before, and we've got to make sure that happens because we're playing a better team this weekend in Utah at our place. So we're going to have a better week of preparation. That starts with the coaches.
That's West Virginia head coach Rich Rodriguez following the 41-10 loss at Kansas. Mountaineers fall to 2-2 overall. They're 0-1 in Big 12 play. You can hear more post-game reaction on the website and app. We also had a chance to speak with Rodney Gallagher and Reed Carrico, the linebacker, after the loss to Kansas. All right, final thoughts here with Cody Nespor, Golden Blue Nation's beat reporter. We're going to look ahead here to the Utah game as we put a fork in Kansas week and look ahead to West Virginia's return to Milan Puskar Stadium, where the Mountaineers are undefeated this year. But, Cody, the gauntlet that is West Virginia's early Big 12 schedule is really difficult. I know some folks had already pointed out this week, and I'll do so again, that heading into the Kansas game, ESPN rated West Virginia's remaining strength of schedule as the toughest in the country for any team not in the SEC or Big 10. WVU is going to play all of the best teams in the Big 12 this year, with maybe one exception in Iowa State, I guess. But I guess it all remains to be seen exactly how things shake out. Nonetheless, Utah, a nationally ranked team, is coming to town to take on West Virginia Saturday. It's a 3:30 kick on Fox. Though it is worth noting that the Utes are coming off a 34-10 loss at home to Texas Tech. In that game, the Red Raiders hung 24 points on the Utes in the fourth quarter. So what does that mean? Well, West Virginia took on a Kansas team that was coming off an open week and a loss to its rival before that, and then beat WVU by 31 points at home. So now West Virginia has to turn the page against a team that's currently nationally ranked, may not be ranked any longer by the time Monday rolls around and there's a new AP poll. And Cody, you have to imagine that the Utes are going to be coming here with a full head of steam to Morgantown, wanting to avenge that loss against Texas Tech.
Yeah, exactly right. Utah believes they should be contending for the Big 12 title this year. They believe that last year was a fluke. They had a golden opportunity at home to beat another top dog in the conference, and it was a really sloppy game on both sides. Texas Tech, with their backup quarterback, pulls away late. The Utah locker room has got to be really fired up for next week to come out and prove that they are, in the race to win this conference. Last week doesn't matter. That's going to be really interesting to see how they come out and sort of react to what is a disappointing loss for them, just like West Virginia had a disappointing loss tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really tough slate for West Virginia heading into that open week, which, as the injuries continue to pile up, feels like it cannot get here soon enough for WVU. it will come. The open date is 3 weeks from now. West Virginia is going to play 2 Utah teams, the Utes at home and then the Cougars of BYU on the road on a Friday night, October 3rd. So looking at BYU's schedule, it's 2 soft ones and a win over Stanford. They beat Portland State 69-0. They beat Stanford 27-3, 2 home games. As we record this late Saturday night, currently beating East Carolina by 2 scores. And then the first Big 12 game of the season for BYU is coming up 1 week from today against Colorado, a team that certainly has some questions as it exits its non-conference schedule and turns the page into conference play. So that game, the game against Utah, obviously is first and most important for WVU, but then after that, it's just going to keep getting more difficult as the Mountaineers go to Provo. Cody, one more quick thought here as we wrap up the show. So a lot of talk there from Coach Rodriguez about watching the film. That plane ride back from Kansas is going to be perhaps a very productive one as the coaches try to dissect exactly what went wrong in all 3 phases of the game for WVU. Give me your snap judgment and immediate reaction. Where's one area that West Virginia absolutely has to improve for next week against the Utes?
Yeah, it's got to be offensive consistency. I mean, we see them several times this year. They've put together really, really good, impressive drives to go down and either score a touchdown or kick field goals. And then on the flip side, we see them have these really quick 3-and-outs that barely last a minute and put their defense back out in the field. Even, you're not going to score a touchdown on every drive, but you need to be able to go pick up a first down or 2, move the ball downfield, get your opponent deep in their own territory, keep your defense off the field for a few minutes. They weren't able to do that early in this one, and we talked about how that kind of snowballed, especially against Utah. It's the same thing. You're going to have to find, I don't know if it's playing around with the quarterbacks more or just switching up play calls or something. You're going to have to find a way to be more consistent just to get first downs, just to move the ball out of the shadow of your own end zone, and so you're at least punting near midfield. That's got to happen. It didn't happen tonight, and we saw the ramifications of it.
Cody, I think that's such a great point. I know there were a lot of things that went wrong in the Kansas game, and so it's not just the 5 3-and-outs, which were 1 shy of the 6 against Ohio in another loss, but it certainly is a trend because Coach Rodriguez has mentioned this before, that it's not just about scoring points, right? That tempo offense, it just takes the gas out of opposing defenses. And so if you can even if you don't score, if you can just chip away at them a little bit, that's the point of the tempo offense. And you saw the effects of it against Pitt. The Panthers fell apart. I mean, completely lost their composure late in the game. Guys laying down on the field after plays because they had run out of gas late in the game. And the reason for that was because West Virginia finally was able to apply some pressure, apply pressure, and then get it across for a field goal, touchdown, force overtime, win the game, right? You didn't see that. Certainly not early on in the game for West Virginia, and it's something that absolutely is going to be a requirement to beat Utah here in 1 week. All right, that's a wrap on this edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast. He's Cody Nespor, Golden Blue Nation digital beat reporter covering the Mountaineers. He's one of the best on the beat, and we're glad to have him with us. Cody, thanks for the time, man.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
All right, that's a wrap on this edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast. Make sure you're following us on Facebook, Instagram, and X for more coverage of the Mountaineers. Again, a really important midweek press conference coming up Tuesday where we hope to gain some new information about some of the players who have recently sustained injuries, including the center, Landon Livingston. We'll have you covered after Coach Rodriguez's weekly media session at goldenbluenation.com and on the free GBN app Tuesday. And a quick reminder, make sure you spread the word about the Golden Blue Nation podcast. Help others find our show if you enjoy it. We're now available in video form on the Golden Blue Nation website, Golden Blue Nation app, GBN YouTube channel, and various streaming smart TV apps, streaming apps from our partnered stations, including WBOI, WOWK, and WTRF. For Cody Nespor, I'm Nick Farrell signing off. Thanks for being with us on another post-game edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast presented by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, home of the Same Day Smile.